Hello, this is Stephen Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. This is another request video, and the request was for samurai naval warfare. So this video is going to take a brief look at samurai naval warfare. Now mostly what we're going to do in this video is I'm just going to show you a lot of pictures of boats and other naval gear. And these pictures are taken from various manuals and scrolls, and I'll try to give you a brief overview with each picture that I show. The goal of the video is exactly that though, to give you a brief and general overview of samurai naval warfare. It's not going to be an exhaustive look, it's just going to be a brief overview. Now, before we start though, let's look at some key things to remember. And the primary key thing to remember is that samurai naval warfare is nothing like Western naval warfare. The samurai fought coastal and inland water battles. Warships are more like floating forts. So let's summarize what's going to happen in this video. So it's sort of a continuation of the previous slide. Like I said, it's only a brief overview. It's by no means exhaustive. So let's just go through a few points before we actually get to those pictures. So again, like I said, large ships are not very mobile. They're floating forts. Think of a land fort, but it's on water. They often required many smaller ships to help with logistics, such as getting people to and from, actually moving and steering, getting supplies back and forth. And now the smaller ships, they are more mobile, but they're really only designed for, like I said, coastal, river, and lake warfare. None of these samurai warships are designed, to be way out in the open ocean. They're all designed for very close coastal combat, rivers and lakes. And also now, gear and techniques change over the years, but especially in the beginning, like in the 1100s, 1200s, right? Depending on the gear that the samurai is wearing, or even the ashigaru, whatever, falling into the water could be deadly. Right? It's just not as simple as you fall and then splash and you swim to some ladder, get up and try again. The historical records are filled with accounts of people just, once they fall into the water, they're dead. Their gear weighs them down, they're done for. Similar to that, unlike a fort on land, a burning or sinking ship is a real death trap. If you can imagine a whole bunch of horses and people and supply, there's all kinds of stuff on this ship. Maybe it has horses, maybe it doesn't. But you have a whole bunch of people on this ship. People are armored. The idea is to pull two of these floating forts up next to each other, and then you drop bridges down and you invade, right? Now imagine a fort on the water where there's a lot of people that don't know how to swim, or their armor and gear is way too heavy, and then that thing sinks, right? It's not like you can just jump off of it and swim to shore. Some people can, but oftentimes when a lot of people drowned, a lot of people drowned in these scenarios. And then the last thing on here is a lot of techniques for coordinating boats and land troops. So you will see in the next panel, we'll talk about this some more. There's a lot of the boats actually serve as logistic support for the land troops. We'll get into that in the video later. All right, the final slide before we get into the pictures. Naval battles, which are, like I said, they're coastal, river, and lake. It's not open ocean. It's usually conducted by large armies, right? In order for you to be like a warlord who engages in these sort of naval battles, like coastal battle, generally it's a large army. You have to be you have to be a certain level of warlord. As such, you don't really find it a lot in things like Kusunokiru, right? So Kusunokiru doesn't have a lot of information on naval battles. The information that it has is mostly related to Genji techniques, Tada Genji techniques, Oe Genji techniques, and it's all related to small guerrilla forces utilizing boats to support the land troops. So for example, coordinating boat troops with land troops to set up temporary bridges that allow for entrance and exits that would otherwise not exist. And we'll see some pictures of that later in the video. That's a Genji technique. The usage of flotation devices to get in and out of locations more discreetly, where regular swimming is either too loud or it's simply too dangerous. We also find this, In Kusunoki-ryu has flotation devices. Fukushima-ryu Shinobi have flotation devices, etc., etc. And of course, eventually everyone was using flotation devices, but the usage of ships coordinated with land troops to transport horses and other supplies, tools, weapons. So these three that you see on your screen, this is how these are like Genji techniques, which you then see in Kusunoki. And beyond these measures, you don't really see much in Kusunoki. Like Kusunoki doesn't have any real like ship formations or anything. There's because again it's a guerrilla force. It's like 500 troops or less. So boats are used to assist the land troops. So this is what I've done is I've just taken a picture, and in the document it's split in half because of the way the document is constructed. So what I'm doing is just the images are being put together to try to give you so you can see what the ship would look like in the picture. The bow of the ship, the stern of the ship, or the front of the ship, and the end of the ship. The bow is usually pointed with some kind of feature. The stern is almost always squared off. So this is the same picture from a different version, a different copy. And again, you're just looking at it. So again, the bow, the stern. And so you can get an idea that these even the look of them, once you start seeing these pictures, you'll realize how these things are not meant for anything other than coastal, like right on the shore, like very, very coastal sort of fighting, or rivers and lakes and stuff. Again, they're floating forts. They're not open ocean vessels at all. So in this picture, yet again, we see a different model of ship. Again, the bow and the stern. This video is not going to go into all the different types of ships because there are so many different types. At different time periods had different types. So you got to imagine different types of ships in this time period, different types of ships in this time period. And they're all very similar over the time period, but again, so many different types of ships with so many different variations. But one thing that's cool about this picture is you can see the family crest. That this is the Noshima family document, and you can see the Noshima's family crest on the bow and on some of the flags. So I think that's a really cool little touch. But yeah, this is just yet another picture, and we'll show a few more before we move on. There's just too many. And in this picture, same thing. It's just a different copy, and so you can sort of see again. Now, hopefully, we're only two pictures in, but you can get an idea of like, oh, you can see how these boats are really designed and how they really operate. And here we have yet another design for another type of ship. Again, each one of these designs is for a different type of ship that serves a different type of purpose, but they all have you can see there's a general shape regardless of the purpose of the vessel. And like I said, these drawings come from the Suigun Hiden, which is part of the Noshima family tradition. Now again, not every one of these ships would have sails, but on the ones that have sails, because again, many of them don't have sails, they're only paddled. But for the ones that have sails, on the screen you can see this is a drawing of the type of sail and the different names and all that stuff. And it's just two different versions. So I've given you two pictures from two different versions. In an earlier slide, I talked about deployable bridges off the bow. So again, two different versions of the same text, but you'll see off the bow of the ship, which is the front of the ship. So I know some of the viewers may not know. Bow of the ship is the front, stern is the back. So the front of the ship has these deployable bridges that come off the front. So the idea on these particular vessels, the idea would be to get them close enough, and then you would deploy the bridge, and then of course everybody would cross it to wherever they're being deployed to. On this slide, we see the sort of Monomi Tower, or the watchtowers. These are raised up with ropes. This is just like the scouting towers or the viewing towers that get used on land. If you guys are familiar with I think it's like the Gunpo Jioshu, there's a type of tower where It's you they're the structures, they're like the poles are there permanently, but the actual little hut gets raised up and down with ropes. And this is the exact same thing. It's just on the boat. Okay, so we've looked at a couple of different ship designs with some features. Now let's just take a moment to talk about battle formations. So like anything involving warfare, there's going to be methods and procedures, or aka battle formations. And the form and there are naval battle formations, and they're based on the type of ships being deployed, the terrain, whether you're in the coast, a river, or an inland lake, and ultimately the purpose of deployment is: are you attacking? Are you defending? Are you, you know what I mean? Ultimately, are you attacking or defending? There's different variations of those, but are you attacking or are you defending? And as I mentioned earlier, large ships often needed a lot of smaller ships to help with defense and positioning. So many times the reason the formation is designed the way it is, it's based more on that logistical support than on the actual attacking. Okay, so now in this slide, you will see different types of ships, and these come from the Omori document, which is the same document that in a previous video I was showing capture tools from. So this is that same document, but this is from the naval warfare, or the water warfare section. And you can see just different types of ships. The Orange Arrow, that ship has a mast, has, can actually have sails, and then it has oars on the back, the rudder control on the back, and then to the arrow, to the red arrows, that one has, so you can see those cannons hanging there. Pink arrow shows that platform. The green arrow is showing one that actually has a tower built on it. The purple arrow is showing one that's more, not, it wouldn't be the capital ship, but it would more be a strategic vessel because it actually has like that building on the ship, etc., etc. So without going into too much detail, the reason to show you this panel is just give you an idea. Again, there's so many different types of ships because they serve different purposes, but they all ultimately have the generic same shape. So let's move and look at some various tools and techniques. So now we've looked at the ships. Now let's just look at some other tools and techniques related to water warfare, to samurai water warfare. So on the left we have a weight used to measure depth. You can see the bottom of it is the weight, and then it goes up one, goes up another one, two, goes up another one, three. So this is for measuring depth. You have hooks for various purposes, whether they're a hook on a rope or a hooks on a pole or a rope with a weight with spikes on it, just various purposes. To the far right, you'll see on that the defensive walls of these ships were oftentimes built from shields that were linked together. So you can see different ways. Like for example, at the top, you see those shields are just linked together with rings and pole. On the green arrow, we're showing them actually interlocking. To the blue arrow is showing how they can be sort of stacked up, but they even have the holes that you can view and shoot out of. So, all right, now we'll move on to the next slide. On this slide, we're going to look at flotation devices and the breakdown boats. So the red arrows are pointing to flotation devices of different kinds, and then the green arrows are pointing to a type of boat that can be broken down, and the pictures to the left are from the Omori document, and then the picture above is from the Fukushima Ryu Shinobi no Maki, which, as hopefully the viewers know, is a Nojiri document. And so also many of the viewers are going to go, oh, this is the ninja page. You're like, okay, yes, this is the ninja page. The Fukushima Ryu Shinobi no Maki is a ninja document. That's a ninja flotation device, a ninja boat. But I'm also showing you from the Omori document, it's not just ninja gear. It is samurai water gear in general. And of course, shinobi will use it because it is ways to get across water safely. So either you have one of these flotation devices and you wear it and you get across the water, or you have this kind of breakdown boat. It's a boat that sort of collapses on itself. You put it together, paddle across, and when you get to the other side, you can collapse it again, etc., etc. So the flotation devices and the breakdown boats absolutely count as samurai naval warfare or samurai water warfare. Absolutely. Here on this panel, The red arrow is showing how the boats can sort of be linked to each other, which is important because then the yellow arrow is showing how temporary bridges can be made by linking boats together. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the video where I said the Genji technique or the Kusunoki technique of utilizing the boats to make temporary passageways. So you'll find it's in the Genji traditions and it's also in the Kusunoki traditions because the Kusunoki tradition takes it from the Genji tradition of boats of coordinating with coordinating with people on boats with people on land so that the people on the boats can create these temporary entrances and or exits which would normally not be there. And then in the green arrow shows transporting a horse on the water. So you see this flotation sort of raft is created and the horse is sort of tied and sent across. The blue arrow shows something where you can actually use the flotation methods to actually create a platform of which to then fire cannons from. So there's a lot of different techniques where you can set up, you can either move horses or troops or supplies, across water, which again, this is not the open ocean. This is the coast, this is rivers, this is lakes. This is mostly rivers and lakes. On this page really is mostly rivers and lakes. But anyway, these pictures pretty much speak for themselves. Now going back to that one picture we just showed, if you see the green arrow pointing to the left, on just the outskirts of that bridge you can see what looks like kind of something in the water, and then now that arrow to the right, what that is a type of netting that is dropped into the water to close off that area. So it's kind of like, when people drop fish nets down to catch fish, this is a way to sort of close off an area from people being able to swim past it. Similarly, and then so basically everything on this page is related to that or variations of that. You can have, and then at the bottom left you can sort of see a variation of that. I won't go into that because you can go on and on of all the different ways that you can, drop that net, and then you can potentially make platforms to cross the top or this. There's so many different things, but I wanted the viewer to be aware that at least of the very basic idea of these sort of dropped nets. On this panel is just to remind you that all kinds of things can be sort of trailed off the back of a boat, deployed from a boat, hang from the side of a boat, etc., etc. To the right there's a Nojiri secret device that can be trailed along a boat, and hint hint, it involves water mines. So basically there's nothing more else to discuss, but just to let you know that there's a whole thing about water mines and just things that can be put into the water, trailed off the water, set off from the boat. There's all kinds of stuff. And I think this is our last panel, but I wanted to show that what we have here is the top picture shows people crossing from a boat to elevated land, and they're not using boats or anything. It's a rope system. Then the bottom one showing sort of like crossing a river with a rope system. You'll see how the guys on the boat are coming up to the rope that's stretched across. They have their own rope. They're holding this line that's slung over the other line, etc., etc. Again, the pictures pretty much show you everything you need to see, but the viewer should be aware of this as well, because this is a water warfare tactic. Again, it involves rivers and inland lakes and stuff, but this is where a lot of the water warfare took place, what is on rivers and inland lakes. So crossing rivers, etc., etc. This is the end of the video. Hopefully the video helped to bring some level of clarity to the viewer about the quote-unquote samurai on the water. Again, just brief reminder, there are no massive ships broadsiding each other out on the open ocean. So, again, there's no samurai galleon, with like four-mast raging through the ocean, broadsiding ships and stuff like that. That's Western naval warfare. That is just not existent in the samurai history. Samurai water warfare, naval warfare, was about securing coastlines. And again, this is very close to the shore. and rivers and lakes. It's about using the waterways for logistical purposes, for moving supply lines, for moving troops, etc., etc., etc.